you use the term mind shift, and it seems like there has to be two mind shifts. I'm curious how y'all feel about this. One is, like you say, we used to think about predators as the guy that showed up outside the fence at the schoolyard in the raincoat and saying, "Hey, kid, would you like some candy?" Now we realize that 95% of them are known to their victims. And now we know they're on the internet and they're a completely different breed of cat. So we've got to get them to realize this may have been the kid that was in the lunchroom or sitting next to me in the back of the class yesterday, and he didn't have horns. He didn't look all dark. Well, he probably looked dark, but didn't have horns. So we've got to get that mind shift. But then the other mind shift is that telling is not tattling.
Right.
They've got this idea that snitches get stitches, and we've got to get them to realize that they're helping. If they can get this information to the right person at the right time, they may be saving this kid's life, because this is A, suicide mission, B, he's in pain, and C, terribly lonely, marginalized, and desperate for some kind of relief. This is a helping thing, not something punitive.
And that's actually the first step in the true intervention, which is we've got to train everybody in the school building. And I mean everybody, the person on the front desk, the teachers, the principal, and the students and the parents, so that if you see something, you say something, and everybody's on that same page of knowing that you're doing this because you're trying to help somebody. And not only are you trying to help somebody because you're trying to prevent a school shooting, but in doing so, you might also be preventing a suicide, or you might be preventing a student who's being bullied and is feeling lonely and isolated and everything that you just described. So there's this really huge diffusion of benefits for doing this. And it really comes down to, we've got to make sure everybody is singing from the same hymn sheet on this, and we're all on the same page, and we're all in it together. So we can train everybody in this. We talk about crisis intervention as like CPR. It can save a life, and it's something that everybody can be educated in and can practice. And I think that's the mind shift right there to use.
To me, that makes so much sense. We need to train cafeteria workers, janitors, coaches, teachers, teachers' aides, administrators, local police officers, parents, everybody. And then there's got to be somewhere for them to go, particularly the students, because, like I said, if we've got 300 or 400 students in a high school, that's 300 or 400 sets of eyes. A school counselor's not going to see this the way the kids are going to see it. They can see it sitting back there in geometry. They can see it in gym. They can see it in the lunchroom. But they've got to have somewhere that they can anonymously report this so they don't feel like they're putting themselves in jeopardy. Because if they're wrong, and most of the time they probably will be, but they've only got to be right occasionally to save lives. But right or wrong, they've got to know that they can do this anonymously, and then it's going to be acted on. And I can tell you, in my experience with these kids that get really dark, whether it's a coach or a teacher or somebody that can just step up one time and put their arm around their shoulder and say, "Hey, man, take a walk with me. Let's go talk. I'd like to know what's going on, and I've looked at your records and I see you're falling behind. We can work this out. It's okay. I understand you broke up with this girlfriend or whatever, but I'd like you to help me in the office after school or something for a while." Anything that makes them feel like there's a reason to get up tomorrow, and then they can contact the parents and find out if all these other things, the early childhood trauma that's unresolved, what was the crisis point? What do you find out about the family dynamic once you find out what's going on in the home?
We see a few different things. Oftentimes you find that the family itself is really chaotic and in crisis. There might be domestic violence in the home or financial struggles, and the boy is not getting kind of the attention and resources that he needs at home. Once in a while, you'll see a parent who maybe does see some of the warning signs and almost kind of amplifies the risk. So does things like is then taking them to shooting ranges and buying them guns and not monitoring social media, where it's, almost sort of next level in terms of pushing them further down that pathway. So we see both of those things.
Where are most of the shooters getting their guns?
They take them from their parents or their grandparents or their family members. They're not old enough to buy them, so they're taking unsecured firearms from homes.
Let's say we did everything that we're talking about here. Let's say that we were able to get the protocol folded into teacher, staff, student training. They were willing to make time in teacher training, student training. There was a protocol put together to give them the idea that there was a number to call, that there was somebody on the other end that knew what to do, that there was an intervention strategy, there was a step 2, 3, and 4 if this was reported. And then there was a massive campaign to lock up the guns, just like the Just Say No campaign from Nancy Reagan. Massive campaign to lock up the guns. So the kid couldn't get the guns as readily from home or grandma's house or whatever. How much of an impact could we have here? If we trained everybody and locked up the guns, how much of an impact could we have?
I think it could really be a game changer. And again, it's not just because you're trying to prevent a school shooting, but doing that could also prevent an accidental shooting in the home where a child finds a gun and accidentally uses it against a family member. It could prevent suicide in the home. It could prevent domestic violence in the home. So again, you get this ripple effect that sometimes that messaging can have this broader impact than you really can ever appreciate. But in the case of these school shootings, it's unequivocal that these shooters are getting firearms from the home. And the more we can do to send the message that safe storage saves lives could truly be a game changer. And so I think a public health campaign around that is also something that is not really that controversial. Whenever you talk about firearm policy, it often gets stuck because it's such a divisive issue. This is something I think everybody can agree on. Everybody can say, we want to be responsible gun owners. And the way we do that is if we've got children, if we've got teenagers in the home, we store our firearms safely. And it's something to be proud of if we do that.